Hi everybody, welcome to the Purpose People podcast. Today I've got Steph from Gympanzees. Her story's an impactful one, and if I know anybody that lives life by cause, it's definitely Steph. So welcome today to the Purpose People podcast.
Great to be here.
So Steph, you do an incredible work with people, and I've known you since the entrepreneurial days, back in Entrepreneurial Spark and the whole NatWest journey that we were on together.
Yeah. And
just to see the increase of what you're doing is incredible. Would you just want to explain to the audience what Gympanzees actually are?
So we are a charity, and we are building what will be the UK's first fully inclusive exercise and play centre for children and young people with all disabilities and their families.
So obviously the thing that has come out is that this is like the only one in the UK.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, I go, and it's still not even there yet, is it?
Yep.
It's not built yet. So It's like, wow, I can't believe it's the only one, and it's never been seen as a need before. So, yeah.
Oh, the need's been there. I actually don't know why it hasn't been done. I mean, it's been a lot of work. Maybe that's why it hasn't been done, but it is mad that it hasn't. If you look at any child of any age and you go on Google and say, what can I do with my child, my 4-year-old or my 8-year-old or my 15-year-old this weekend, there are pages and pages and pages and pages of things you can do.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a disabled child, that's just not the case. So about 3/4 of disabled children can't access mainstream leisure facilities. There are amazing organisations, amazing charities doing little bits, but it's just not in any way equivalent to what everyone else gets. Yeah. And these are families who have extra challenges. These are, wonderful, amazing, gorgeous children who are growing up in a different way from other children. Yeah. And families are having to, learn about health and schooling challenges and behavioural challenges. There's so much that goes with disability that is just extras, an extra challenge, and then not being able to get out and about like everyone else does it's just wrong, frankly.
So how did you discover this to be a problem? So what was your sort of like your journey to get to this point? The backstory, the origin story. Well, tell us some of that.
It's a long one. My brother is disabled. He's got Down syndrome. So I've been in the disability world forever. And I'm actually a disabled children's physio by trade. Mm-hmm. So I set up my private practice in Bristol in 2012 and was fully booked very quickly. At the moment, there's just not enough therapy really for disabled children. And a lot of people are having to turn to private therapy, which isn't as it should be. Yeah. So I was getting calls from desperate parents wanting therapy that I could no longer give them. My families would generally come weekly. And so I was fully booked. And so I thought if I can get my clients, my children, out into the community to do exercise for one of the weeks, then they could come to me the other week and I could see double the number of clients, which I thought was going to be quite straightforward. So I started taking children out to things like the gym or soft play or climbing walls or parks, and nothing worked for them. And this was completely shocking. And it was lots of different reasons. Access reasons, we couldn't get the wheelchair in the door, or the staff didn't know what to do with someone who was disabled, or the equipment didn't fit properly, or there weren't the right changing facilities for physically disabled children. And I was so shocked. So started looking into it more, and it turns out it's not just children with physical disabilities who are my clients. It was children with all kinds of other disabilities, things like ADHD or autism, who have very different needs. Generally, there's a kind of more sensory about what the world is around them, their environment, how noisy it is, how busy it is. But it's the same problem for everyone. And they're just not able to access mainstream facilities. And their health and well-being is suffering as a result. And this isn't just the children who are having difficulties because of this. This is also the parents. There's a massive problem with isolation. These families, you have a baby and you are going along the baby journey with all your other mum and dad friends from whatever antenatal classes you've done, and you're all comparing the little bits and little things that are changing, etc. If your child is disabled, they may be developing at a very different rate or in a very different way, and so you don't have those people to share it with. And it's about 8% of children who are disabled, and of that, it's incredibly unlikely that you will have another friend who's got a child with similar needs to your child. And so families are negotiating this very, very different world without having support of other people. So it can be massively isolating, and about 72% of parents have mental health problems as a result of this isolation.
Wow. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. When you look at the problem in the country and the situation you're trying to solve, it's, you're trying to give the best care to someone that is disabled, but it's everything else around it that's not being dealt with as well.
Massively. Yeah, and it goes up to grandparents and siblings and aunts and uncles, and it's the community generally. This is something that is lacking for everyone. To put it in context, within an hour of Bristol, there's 66,000 children and young people with disabilities.
Wow.
Countrywide, there's more than 1 million. So this is a big old problem, and it is just crazy. It hasn't been done before.
And yet you decided
yes,
to champion that cause
exactly,
and basically begin to make an impact into these people's lives, which is incredible. And I think for me, what I find, just with the statistics, that is overwhelming.
Yes.
It's like, oh my gosh, this is like, where did we start? And that's just the UK, right?
Yeah.
So how do you cope with all this, like, seeing a need, but it's so vast? How do you actually cope with remaining sane in the process?
That's a really good question. I think actually what was much harder was when I was a physio and I could only see 30 children at a time.
Right.
That was like, I cannot fit one more person in. This is just impossible. And actually what we are planning to do, we're expecting about 200,000 visitors a year, and that's in Bristol. When that one's up and running, then we'll set up around the country. So there is a vision to help this, help all children with disabilities in the UK.
So your plan is to build a dedicated centre for these children.
Yep.
And once that's built, then cut and paste.
Yes, exactly.
So exactly. just explain a little bit about that centre, where it is, and what you're doing to get there, because that's not going to be cheap, right?
No. So we, so from the start, we knew that this was going to be a multi-million-pound venture, and because it's never been done before, we've had to prove our concept. So the first thing we had to do was do a smaller version of what the main centre is going to be.
Yeah.
So the journey started with what we call pop-ups. We run these pop-ups in the Easter and summer holidays. We rent out a special school for that time, completely empty it for all the schoolness, tables and chairs, etc., and bring in three-ton truckloads of equipment.
Wow.
And we set up 10 different activity rooms, and then we also have a cafe and therapy rooms and exercise studios for things like disabled yoga, Pilates. And we open to families. They book on, and they come and have an amazing time for an hour and a half or 2 hours with the families. So we have had 130 days that we've been open over the 7 pop-ups, and we've had more than 21,000 visitors in that time. Some are doing a 6-hour round trip for their hour-and-a-half sessions. Others are staying overnight in hotels. They can come 2 days in a row. And we actually, this pop-up we've just had, this Easter, we had a lady from Birmingham who phoned us up to ask us when the dates were going to be in advance so that she could book her entire Easter holiday around the pop-up, so that they could come every day.
Which I find incredible, is that she's having to come all the way different from to do that.
Yeah.
And then how much time she actually gets.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just mad.
But that's what's crazy. We had a lady from Southampton who booked 20 times in the summer holidays, 20 out of 24 days. And she would come up and down from Southampton because there was nothing for her child. And
much for her as
yeah,
well.
completely. And
Yeah.
it is a whole family thing. And actually, for our parents, it's easily as beneficial as for our children. And for the siblings as well, meeting another sibling who gets it, who gets that you are also a carer some of the time to your disabled sibling. So it has been massively impactful. So the numbers are great. All of that side is, we prove the concept through the businessy side. The bit that really is important for me is the health side of it.
Yeah.
So we, from my physio point of view, it's getting children active and exercising. And there's some of our children, our children who are full-time wheelchair users, who perhaps can't even hold their own heads up, they get absolutely no exercise. They are in a chair. The exercise as a physio, you think it's a good thing if they're hoisted onto the changing table to change their nappies, because that's moving their body a little bit. That's the extent of exercise for a lot of these children, young people. We can get them in a cross trainer where they can. Recently, one girl did 6 kilometers in this cross trainer where she can't walk a step normally.
Wow.
So getting children who really can't exercise to exercise is incredible. And then the other side of it, which is less well known than exercise, is the sensory side.
Yeah.
So all of us have a sensory system. We all feel the world slightly differently from each other. Some of us are really sensitive to movement and probably don't want to be on a roller coaster. There are others who really like being upside down and doing loads of gym work, etc. And that is all driven by your sensory system, by how you're feeling the world. For our disabled children, about 80% of them feel the world in a way that impacts negatively on their lives.
Yeah.
So, for example, the two very basic, kind of different ways they can either feel too much or they don't feel enough. So for some children to feel too much, that could be if you're hearing too much. I spoke to an 18-year-old autistic girl who was saying when she walks into a classroom of 30 people, it sounds like there are 30 televisions on at full blast, and she can hear every single word that they're all saying. So that completely fills her brain. She gets completely overloaded by this. And then she's asked to do a task by her teacher, and it's just one thing too far. And so either she shuts down, can't concentrate for the rest of the day, or she has to leave the room. And that's the kind of hyper sensitivity that children can have. But it could be that they're hypersensitive to touch. It could be that touching a teddy bear actually feels like pain. It could be you're hypersensitive to visual, to what's coming in through your eyes. And so going in a shopping mall where people are walking past you can just make you feel sick. So you can feel too much. The other side is hyposensitivity. So that's when you're not feeling enough. So a lot of our mobile children have this. A lot of our autistic children or children with ADHD have this in parts. But then a lot of our children who are wheelchair users have this. So if you think as a baby, babies are putting their feet in their mouths and they're playing with their legs and they're kind of able to touch their bodies by accident, but then by choice when they're kind of scratching their bellies, etc. And through that, they're learning where their bodies are. And they're learning that their bodies are their own, and they learn where their body stops and the rest of the world starts. So for a lot of our children who are not mobile enough to be able to do that, they may not have learnt that their legs are theirs, or that their arms are theirs, or that their backs are theirs. And if you don't know, if you can't feel your body, if you can't feel yourself moving, then you can't learn movement. So the sensory side is a massive impact on children's development. And what we do at the centre is we try and stimulate the senses in a way that's really therapeutic. So there are two kind of sensory systems that are the most impactful for a lot of children. So your vestibular system, which is your movement system, different movements will make you feel good or stimulated. So things like rocking a baby is really calming. Jumping up and down is really alerting. Spinning can make some people feel great, can make most of us feel sick. So that's your vestibular system, and then the other system is your proprioceptive system. So this is the system which tells you where your body is compared to the rest of the world. So I know when I'm taking a step, I know where my foot is, I know when it's going to hit the floor. I know I'm not going to walk into a door frame. I know that I can hold a bunch of books in my arms and I'm not going to let them go because I know where my arms start and the books stop. So your proprioceptive system makes you feel really safe. It makes you know where your body is. A lot of our children, for a start, don't have very good proprioceptive systems, so they don't feel very safe in their bodies. But if you can stimulate the proprioceptive system, it actually can calm down all those other systems. So it can make that hypersensitivity reduce so that the child in the classroom actually can block out what these other children are saying and can listen to her teacher. So it can be calming for those who are hypersensitive, but it can also alert the body. If you're not feeling your body properly, it can actually wake up your body to allow you to learn how to move, etc. So we have loads of different options within the pop-ups, and we will at the centre, that can stimulate the proprioceptive system, the vestibular system, or lots of other systems, so that children are actually getting therapy while they are having fun. We call it stealthy health. So they don't know that they're there for therapy, but they are getting these enormous impacts, so that while they're at the pop-up, they end up talking to a stranger or making a friend for the first time. I think 15% of our young people at the latest pop-up made a friend for the first time or communicated with a stranger for the first time. Or they can, go home after the pop-up and be able to sit for a whole hour at a lesson instead of the normal 5 minutes that they can manage. So it can have these massive impacts. So we have seen this over the pop-ups. We've seen huge improvements. We've seen huge impacts on the health and well-being side. We've had, we had a 6-year-old who took his first steps. We've had a 12-year-old who slept through the night for the first time after a session. We've actually had 2 3-year-old boys who had their first ever laugh. That was...
That's incredible. So the sensory stuff, because I've never heard this before. And for me, it's like, just in everyday life, when there's too much going on, like there's TVs, there's, notifications, there's games or whatever, and you sometimes just go, I just got to go outside.
Yes, exactly.
So
that's the
I've never realised
side.
It's like that's such a thing. It's incredible.
Such a thing. And actually, just in a mainstream school, a lot of children are finding it difficult to concentrate because of the sensory environment. Because it's either too busy or it's not busy enough. There are some people who need music or they need movement to be able to concentrate. So some children need a fiddle toy, for example. They need to be getting that movement in their hands to be able to concentrate on what the teacher's saying. So the sensory world shapes all of us. You have those people who, I'm sure whether you're one or not, who say they have to go to the gym every day, otherwise they feel rubbish. And that's because they need their sensory system stimulated to the right amount. And we have really intense sensory things happening at the centre. We have this vibrating platform, which it goes up to 25. And when you stand on this thing, it honestly rattles every bone in your body and is hugely intense, and a lot of people can't get to that 25. A lot of people stop at kind of 10 or 15 because it feels too much. We have children who lie on that with their heads on it for 10 minutes because that's what they are desperately seeking. They are seeking intense sensory input because then they feel great. And so if they're doing that at the centre, what are they doing at home or in school that gives them the same amount of sensory input? Because if they are needing it, if they're doing it, it's because they need it and they like it, and actually, like the people who need to go to the gym to feel good, these children may well need something like that to feel good and to be able to concentrate and be calm and be happy, etc. So part of what we do is actually teaching the children themselves, but also the families, what a child needs to to help them to be in the world in the best way that they can.
What I find incredible is that, you know, we're obviously finding out this stuff now, and you're trying to build something to anticipate what's coming down the future.
Yeah.
Do you find that, like, the aspects of mental health, do you see that on the rise now so much, or is it we're just more aware than we ever were?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. So in terms of mental health, we see it a lot with autistic or neurodivergent children, young people. Mental health is on the rise. I think the pressures that youths are under, that children are under, there's a lot of chat about social media and how bad it is, but also, you know, the environment, the climate. There's so many worries that these families have that we didn't necessarily have when we were younger. So, you know, we work with people like hospital education, who work with people with young people who can't get into school for a medical reason. Often that's mental health, and actually they come to the centre and they feel accepted and not judged, and they can try out a piece of kit that can really calm them or make them feel more confident. So it can be really impactful for mental health as well. Disability full stop, I think it's amazing. I think it's brilliant that more people are coming forward and acknowledging the fact that there may be something, there may be a reason why they feel like they don't fit in, or that people don't quite get them, or they don't quite get other people. And having a label, you know, it can be, some people aren't sure whether a label is a good thing, but I have spoken to parent after parent, or actually adults who have a disability, who have ADHD, for example, or autism, and it's really helped for them to go, oh, okay, that's why. It's not because I am, you know, the only person feeling this. Actually, you know, there's 3% of people who are feeling this. And actually, if I can know what that is, that means I can go and find something that can really help for me, or that makes sense. That's why I can't sit still, and actually my brain is going at 100 miles an hour and other people don't get it. Oh, I could use a piece of equipment that can really help me with that. So I do think diagnosis is going up. My gut is that a lot of it's always been around, just people have struggled and hidden it, and then it comes out as a massive mental health crisis in their 20s or 30s because they've been hiding it for so long.
Been masking it for many, many, many years.
Exactly.
I feel that, you know, and then on the physical side, you know, the biggest thing that I've been brought in to highlight is the unpaid carers thing.
Ugh.
You know, it's a massive thing. It's like, you know, you've got a physically disabled child, and then the parents are obviously looking after, and then their capacity to earn money and do all those other things is now limited. And I don't think it's completely recognised by everybody that this is a thing. It's almost like, oh, well, that's what you have to do, and that, you know. Yeah,
I think a lot of what goes on with disability is just ignorance. It's not people being uncaring or unkind. It's just that they just don't know. And we get this a lot with actually some of our members of staff, or some of the volunteers, people who come in and who go, God, I had no idea. But why would you, unless you're in it? But yes, for the unpaid carers, and I think it's about 83% of parents, or one parent's mother generally, who doesn't work, who has to stay home. Often the father also has to stay home.
Yeah. So
you're losing that money-making power. It's 3 times as expensive to have a disabled child as a non-disabled child. You know, the amount of equipment and, you know, just getting to all the hospital appointments with parking, or not being able to get parking and probably have to get cabs, or, you know, it's things like you have to have nappies for the rest of your life. That all of these costs are just, you know, adding to the stress for these families. The unpaid carer thing, it is really close to my heart because I come across it all the time, and a lot of parents, they love their child. Obviously, they'd love their child. They will do anything for their child. They'll move heaven and earth, and that for a disabled child is a lifelong, you know, bit of work. It's huge. And yet there's very little recognition or help. And a lot of these families are so tired that they're not going to be the first shouting from the rooftops. It's kind of...
Well, they've just barely got the energy to deal with the child, let alone take on a cause and champion, you know, unpaid carers or whatever. I mean, I know a lady called Caddy Thomas, and she's been on here, and she's championing that cause with the Carers Collective, and I look at her life and I go, I can't believe that she is so positive, knowing her backstory and what she's doing. But she's almost like, well, listen, I've got things okay. I have room, and if I've got that room to maneuver, I'm now going to use that time effectively to highlight what's out there and try and champion people. So with this hub, if you like, that you're building, and which is incredible, and then I think there's so many things in and around it. It's so many, like, even from an entrepreneur perspective, not just to make money, but to just meet a need and to solve things. Is there going to be any aspects of research and stuff like that you're looking to sort of involve in that piece? Because obviously you're dealing with the end result, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health or whatever. Is there any thought process for you to like work at the preventative part of things, or seeing how we can spot things earlier and help people in that situation?
Yeah, it's really interesting. My team are constantly having to tell me to stop having new ways that we can do things. I think we have the ability to do a huge amount. So to go back a stage, the pop-ups basically proved the concept, and we have now bought a massive 14-acre site with a 43,000 square foot building, 500 parking spaces, got 7 acres of greenland with a woodland. It's an amazing, amazing site. And we launched a capital appeal in September to raise 8 million to convert it into our centre. So we're about 2.1 million down. So we're on a kind of a fundraising mission at the moment.
Okay.
But we are also looking to see how this hub, as you rightly say, can help as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So we're currently working with Cardiff Uni and UE, University of West of England, to research into the health benefits of what we're doing. Yeah. Can this kind of thing be a template for other play and exercise places, so that actually people are getting benefits elsewhere? That's the ideal, really, for me. But we get a lot of families coming to us who are undiagnosed. At the moment, the diagnosis time for autism is about 3 years in this area. So we have a lot of families who feel like their child will benefit. We don't ask them if there's a disability. If they book on, they book on. If they feel they need it, they can come.
Which is interesting, because if they see the benefit having gone, then it begins to show actually the problem.
Yeah, potentially.
Is there, yeah.
Potentially. And actually, diagnosis, much as I was saying before, it's really helpful. Actually, it's the symptoms and the difficulties and the potential to make life easier. That's what we're about. We're not about cure or, changing someone's diagnosis. That's not important. It's about first giving families an amazing time they can go together, but also teaching them things that can make life a bit easier. And that doesn't need a diagnosis.
Yeah.
So if things like 80% of young people with cerebral palsy will get chronic pain by the age of 21.
Wow.
So chronic pain, that's pain all the time, basically, can take you off your feet, or it can stop you being able to use your hands where you were able to use your hands before. So it can actually reverse some of your development. Whereas if children are making exercise part of their everyday lives from as early on as possible, then that can prevent or reduce the pain. Yeah. If you can get strong, if your muscles can get strong, then they can support and take some of the pressure off your joints, and that reduces the pain. So if they can start really early, that has a lifelong effect for them. Same with the sensory systems. Actually, your sensory systems change throughout your life.
Yeah.
But if they can find something as young as possible, then when they go into the school, they have their strategy to be able to concentrate and make friends, communicate, and all that other great stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not formal research, but it is for the families. This is them being able to find the right thing, without having to pay through the nose for a private therapist.
No, for me, what you've shown is there is a huge problem out there, and rather than sit there and say, well, yeah, there is, you've actually said, right, I'm going to go and do something about it, which is great. Just let us know, what are the sort of people that where do you need the most help? You know, obviously fundraising is clearly one of those things, but where do you need the most help? What could, you know, people listening to this for the first time go, you know what, I love what you're doing, I love to get involved. Where could I help the most?
There are so many places. So obviously fundraising is key. We have this money to raise, and without it, we won't be able to do what we need to do. But that doesn't have to be in money. That could be in skills, that could be in materials, that could be in labour, services, advice. We have a huge kind of network around us now of people supporting us.
Yeah.
But we meet people who can't necessarily give cash but want to be able to help somehow, and they can volunteer, they can support the rest of the staff. We are a growing charity, and growth is challenging.
Yeah, of course.
So people who can support us through that, you know, there are endless opportunities. What
would they do then? Would they go onto the website?
Yeah, Gympanzees.org. So info@gympanzees.org. And there are so many ways. From, you know, spoke to a guy at a dinner the other day who does signage. Okay. So he's now coming over and helping us with our signage. You know, or I spoke to a lady who does fencing, and we're now talking about whether we can get a few other fencing companies to do our fencing. Amazing. You know, there's just it's a big old build. So the build side, anything to do with labour and gifts in kind materials. It is pretty extensive.
Well, that's it, because it's such a big project, and it's such a big, you know, and it has such a big impact. It makes you really attractive to say, right, let's see how many people can actually help and get the message out there. As part of the reason for the podcast is to sort of elevate, you know, what you're doing to as many people as possible. Yeah. In terms of like the families that are out there that are looking to reach out, is that where they go first? Will they go to info@Gympanzees? Would they go to the website that almost say, hey, I want to book my kid on a pop-up?
Our next pop-up is this summer. So that will be on the website to book on. But we also have a lending library. So about 2/3 of the things that are in our pop-up, we lend out to families for free into their homes. Oh, wow. So they can then, stuff they've tried at the pop-up, can then, they can see whether it works at home before they buy it if they want to, or they just have a kind of a turnover of different equipment. And it's not toys, it's equipment, it's gym equipment or soft play sensory equipment. So that's available all the time, and it's all of that's on the website. There is a challenge with our families because often they've been let down so many times that actually they trust that it's going to be right for them. And we have numerous families who come and say, I've been told by 5 different people that I'd love it, but I always thought it'd be good for your child, it won't be good for my child. And then eventually they come. Yeah. So it is about just talking about us, getting people to trust us. Yeah. We do have the most extraordinary feedback. 100% of our children love it.
That's great. Yeah.
It's not bad. We've got something called the Net Promoter Score. Yeah. You heard of that? Yeah. Our Net Promoter Score is 95.
Oh, wow. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So Net Promoter goes from -100 to +100. And 40 is a good score and 70 is an excellent score. And the bank, when they gave us our loan to buy the building, said they've never come across an NPS as high as ours ever. Yeah. So incredible. Our families love it, but the people, what we want to do is to reach out to the people who aren't confident that it's going to work for them. Yeah. So if you know anyone with a disabled child or young person, and we do have adult sessions as well, then just point them our way.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, for me, what's the future hold then? So obviously you've got to get this built.
Yes.
What's the date that you've put out there to say, right, doors open, ribbon being cut?
Doors open June 26.
of what year?
June 2026. June 2026.
Okay, June 2026.
So yeah, we're coming up to 2 years. So we've got a lot to do. The build is starting. So our architects are doing the first design as we speak. Our project manager and quantity surveyor have just been appointed, so they're coming on in the next couple of weeks. We're stripping out the entire building, floors, ceilings, walls, at the end of this year, and then we'll start the actual refurb August next year.
Wow.
But all of this could be an awful lot quicker if we can make the funds quicker. And what's really heartbreaking, I think, for me and for the rest of the team, is that our last pop-up will be in the summer, because next year we're doing the build and we just don't have enough resource to do both. And that means that families are going to have to wait 2 years before they get their next taste of this. And we have so many families, children saying this is the best day of my life, and that's in a school pop-up. What other child says the best day of their life was at an after-school club? Like, they need this, and we need to deliver it for them.
And I guess it's that the hard thing is that it is short-term pain, and there's going to be pain.
Yeah.
But it's the other side of that. It's the long term that the sacrifice is short for the long.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's going to be tough, especially when you've got all those relationships with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And children change, don't they? Over 2 years, it's a big change as well. But Steph, you do an incredible job, and it's just been amazing to chat through the vision and where you want to go. And I guess for me, it's a case of anybody out there that really is this chimed with, to just get in touch through the website, info@gympanzees.org, and just reach out. I mean, whether it's labour, whether it's time, whether it's effort, or you've got a disabled child that really needs help, get in touch, because you're in good hands. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Can people contact you direct, let's say through LinkedIn and places?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Stephanie Wheen. There's only one of me, so
good. Well done.
It's easy to find.
But it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Purpose People podcast. How you can help us is to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. That helps us get our message out there to help people go after their dreams, double down on it, and be successful in life on their terms.